Hey everybody, I'm Jack Barnwell down here in sunny Southwest Florida in Naples at my shop for C3 Gardens. This is our company that I predominantly am down here in the winter time. Have a lot of fun planting up beautiful AquaPots and planters is, predominantly what we do on all these beautiful properties we work on. As many of you know, I am the creator of AquaPots, and we have a collection of these beautiful matte black AquaPots that's going out tomorrow. So we thought we'd pause, plant up one of these big, gorgeous hipsters with you all, kind of, live here. I'm at my shop. I've got a ton of beautiful plant material to play with. I'm gonna design it up on the fly, plant it up, show you through what I'm doing and what I'm thinking, and I think it's gonna be a really good time, so let's dive in. All right, so before we plant up this absolutely beautiful AquaPot hipster, like I said, this is the matte black color. I'm gonna take a minute to take you guys all through how an AquaPot really works and why these things are so flippin' unbelievable. So here we have a little bit smaller hipster. This is the big hipster's little sister. And again, in the matte black here. So this is how an AquaPot comes at retail, so it's got all this information and this beautiful little booklet and everything like that. But most importantly, with every AquaPot is this really awesome, integrated, and very simple system. So every AquaPot comes with this rim formed into the clay during the molding and firing process. It's an extremely important element of an AquaPot, makes it really, really strong, and it's a really key factor because this disc sits on that rim to create the seal between soil and water reservoir, which we'll go over in just a second. So there's just three simple elements to an AquaPot. You have the soil tube, the disc, and what we call the fill tube. And that's it. The soil tube simply gets threaded right onto the disc like that, and you've got all these threads there because you want to have some adjustability in heights, because these are all handmade beautiful pieces, and the thickness of the clay at the bottom of the pot is going to be a little bit different. So you want to be able to adjust that so that when you set this disc down onto that rim, it sits nice and tight, and you have a nice tight seal. Then the fill tube goes into this little hole right here, and that hole is cut at just a slight angle so that the fill tube sits in there nice and tight. Again, nice tight clean seal, and sits right tight up against the rim of the planter. So this guy is ready to go, ready to plant up. I just have to fill it up with potting soil now, like this one already is. And then we'll shift over here and I'll show you how I'm gonna plant this one all up and make it super, super beautiful. All right, so when I fill this one up with potting soil, just like this one already is, I'll kind of knuckle down and pack the potting soil all the way down into that soil tube. And that tube, being surrounded by that fertilizer infused water, will be wicking all that nutrient-rich water up into the plants and into all the soil. And then once I get it all planted up, I top water, soak that soil down through, and then fill up the tank. Then after that, all you have to do once a week, keep the tank topped up. The tank itself has an overflow at the very top of that water reservoir. So on the back side of the planter, as soon as you're done filling it up, it'll spit a little bit of water out and you're done. It's that simple. You cannot possibly overwater an AquaPot, and it will have 24/7 access to that fertilizer infused water. And I keep saying fertilizer infused water. What am I talking about? Well, we actually put a little bit of slow release fertilizer right in the tank. We put a couple of scoops in there at planting, and a couple of scoops, tablespoon little scoops, once a month. That keeps that water reservoir with a little bit of fertilizer infusing into it, because slow release fertilizers will actually slowly dissolve underwater. So the water in the reservoir has those nutrients and everything in it, soaking into, wicking into the soil. The plants can sense it, they can smell it, they know it's down there. They'll send some feeder roots down to it. They'll tap into it. They'll have some roots up at the top to get a little warm sunshine. They'll have some roots in the middle to kind of, you know, dance in between, and they'll be super, super happy. So plants that want a lot of moisture can send roots down deep and get all the moisture they want. Plants that like to be a little bit more on the dry side have that option. If this planter was on irrigation or something like that, drip irrigation, getting soaked every single night, the plants don't really have an option, and all that moisture is right at the top. So the roots are encouraged to stay at the top. So when the drip irrigation fails, which it inevitably will, then all those roots are at the top and the planter dries out really, really fast, and all the plants are dead and dry and not looking good, and you're like, what happened? And then, you know, you're crying and complaining to Jack, and I come in and I install AquaPots, and then you're happy. But today, we're gonna plant up this AquaPot to show you a little bit of style and funk here in the tropics and show you what I'm thinking here today. And then maybe if you want to, you can copy this. Please do let me know what you think of this installation we're about to do, because I'd love to hear what you guys end up doing with all your AquaPots as you get them and plant them up and love them and everything as much as I do. Okay, so first things first, I like to start with my big thrillers. We're gonna go with some height. We got a lot of volume here. This planter goes in a trio of other AquaPots in the corner of a big lanai. So I know this thing's gotta have some big height and volume and wow factor to it. So I'm gonna put a Majesty Palm and kind of paw that in right toward the back there. Stand him up, and I'm sort of lifting him up. You can see I'm making sure the crown of the plant is about 3/4 or an inch or so below the rim, and tucking him in there. Next, another thriller is going to be his buddy, and I'm going to use this Cordyline. Nice root system there on this Cordyline. And you can see this Cordyline here has 3 plants in one, or 3 kind of main stems there in one pot. And that triangle I'm going to use to my advantage. So I'm going to kind of smash that around and get those roots loosened up a little bit. But the flat side of this triangle, I'm going to lay up against that Majesty Palm. That way, I know that as this palm gets big and starts throwing fronds out and stuff, the Cordyline will play along with it and be growing right up with it. So that triangle is kind of pointing away from the palm. Then, on the other side of the palm, we're gonna put this really cool Caricature Plant. And this guy, again, just gonna loosen him up. They come with a lot more soil than you really necessarily need. I'm just looking for those nice, healthy, woody roots, because we're gonna put it into much, much better soil that's got a lot of yummy fertilizer and compost in it. And this plant's gonna be super thrilled. So again, I'm pawing this in to the other side of that Majesty Palm. And this plant is gonna sort of fill and also reach out. You can see it's kind of reaching out a little bit there, out the side. And I'll let that palm come right through it and everything as well. Then, like I said, I do want this planter to get pretty big. So I'm gonna put a philodendron. This is a Philodendron Selloum, which will usually get really, really big. We can keep them a little bit tame when we confine them to a container. So this guy, tucked right in the very, very center there, will send out these big, beautiful elephant ear-like leaves and reach out of this planter and be really, really pretty. We're starting to throw a little color in there now. So I'm gonna go with this Stromanthe. Again, a lot more soil than I necessarily need, especially for this little Stromanthe. I can really take that down quite easily. As you can see, just shaking all that off, I've got some really nice healthy roots there. And to get this pink that's on the back side of these leaves and counterbalance that with the Cordyline that I already have in there. I'm gonna paw that in right underneath that Caricature Plant and kind of lean him out there. And see, that's gonna really balance off that color and the size and shape and texture of the leaves really starting to come together. To also use that pink in there, we're really going with like a pink chartreuse sort of thing with this planter. To get some of that pink in there, I gotta wipe these leaves off when I'm done. I'm a little bit dirty about the way I do things. But this Bromeliad here, beautiful, beautiful Bromeliad, will work out really nicely. And I kind of half plant that in the ground, allow that to really, you know, shoot out and let those roots kind of breathe a little, because it's actually an air plant and it's very, very happy to live up in the trees, you know, in like the little cups of palm trees and such. And it'll be happy right here in this planter as well for sure, but it doesn't want to be completely buried in there and like way too much moisture. So it'll be happy just sort of shining out that planter a little bit there. This Dieffenbachia, a lot of you probably recognize this as a, you know, a very, very simple indoor plant, and it's a great, tough, hardy indoor plant. But it's also a great plant to stuff into an AquaPot because it loves to have a little bit of moisture, have its feet in the wet there, but be reaching out into this kind of diffused light that this is going to get in this lanai patio where this is going. And then lastly, I just have a little bit more space there to tuck in some spillers. And I'm going to use this beautiful what is this one called? Golidelocks. It's Golidelocks lysimachia. Yeah, also known as Creeping Jenny. It's a creepy creeper, and I love that it's got that awesome chartreuse color to it. So I'm going to tuck one in there, and I do have a little bit of space on the back side of this, just sort of tucking in soil as I go. I have a little bit of space on the back side here where it will kind of spill out and fill the back of the planter out as well. So that's it for the bulk of the plantings in this gorgeous planter, but we are not done yet, because to finish off a planting like this before it is delivered, there are 3 things that it still needs. One, I use this gorgeous fluffy Spanish moss, which is actually an air plant. This is a living, breathing plant, and where it spills out of the planter, it will still continue to trail and live and breathe because it lives and breathes in all the in the trees and stuff around here and up in the live oaks and everything. But I like to tuck it in. It really finishes off the planter, kind of acts as a little bit of mulch. I sort of weave it in and tuck it under and around all of these plants, especially in toward the back here, to make sure that if we get a big heavy rain, I'm not going to have a bunch of muddy soil or anything like that spilling out and making a mess. Really keeps the planter quite tight and nice there. And you can see I'm always knocking at it. I'm trying to weave the foliage in together and make sure that's a really nice presentation right off the bat. So I've got my Spanish moss in. We're looking pretty good, pretty good. That's two things left to do now. I also like to tuck in a big planter like this. I like to tuck a beautiful orchid in there. And an orchid in these little nursery pots that they come in, they have lots and lots of holes and drainage all in them, because these are air plants too. They native and naturally like to just grow up in trees and such. So I'm just gonna, because this AquaPot is wicking moisture up in this perfect little, plant happy environment, I'm gonna set this guy right back in here at the base of that Philodendron Selloum and just nestle him down into a little bit of that Spanish moss. Little moss nest And that's literally it. It's about a quarter of the way or so in the soil, and that moisture will wick up and keep that orchid super, super happy. When it does go out of flower, no problem. We can just swap it out with another orchid, or just simply wait and it'll come back into flower as they do, you know, after a few months they take a break, they come back, they take a break. Down here in the tropics, fortunately, that is the deal. And I know a lot of you are thinking like, oh my gosh, there's so much plant material in there, it's so packed, it's overfull, it's overfull. It's really full. These plants will be happy, they will thrive, they will live in harmony for about a year or so, and then they're just simply gonna be too happy. You know, they will have outgrown their space and place. It will be time to rip them out of there. Oftentimes we can cut them up and stuff and still recycle them and put them into different planters or chop them back and, you know, and propagate them and grow them again to live another day. But this thing will shine in its glory for about 8 months to a year down here in Naples and grace this beautiful, beautiful pool lanai and look absolutely stunning. And last but not least, I like to use a little bit of leaf shine to shine these leaves up and give it a really beautiful finished look. So I've got my leaf shine. We buy it in bulk, and we just a nice light spray on the leaves. It's all that it takes, and that's gonna coat those leaves nicely. And on a planting like this with so much foliage out there and everything like that, the leaf shine really helps to kind of lock in the moisture, especially initially when these plants and the roots are just getting established and getting going. And it also makes them super, super beautiful. It takes all of the water staining off of the leaves, makes them shine and look, you know, just like an incredible, beautiful finished product, so that when we deliver these tomorrow, they look really gorgeous, you know, right off the bat. So this planter is pretty well ready to be loaded up, packed in and delivered. We've got a handful more to plant for this delivery, but that's just a little bit of a taste of what we do down here at C3 Gardens. Thought it'd be fun to show you guys around through it and everything like that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, everybody.